necessarily the wrong play to make, but it ended up being just a game-losing play after all.
It wouldn't be a KT versus SKT series if we're not left with a lot of what-ifs.
Yeah, I mean, it's small. Either way, it was very close, as I would imagine Game 2 will be as we move into picks and bans between SKTelecom and KT Rolster, the Rise ban. First to come out from KT.
The best thing about when two top teams face each other is that the picks and bans, so the bans will shape the game, but they can't dictate it because there's so many strong champions. Look at Faker picking up the Corki in, I believe it was second rotation and completely going off essentially the early game. He definitely did get picked in the mid game, but that was just some laziness on his part.
Faker had so many good plays on that Corki. He got caught a couple times too. It wasn't a perfect game for Faker by any stretch, but man, he had some pretty intense outplays there.
Well,
just a Corki ban, yeah.
Corki respect ban. Probably won't see a gangplank ban this game. It is potential for that, at least on the blue side.
Italy, okay. So not quite targeting Bengi quite as hard this game.
I wonder if Someday is left ruining that he didn't play Fiora last game, where Duke would certainly have had his influence curtailed, and any attempts of having any side lane push, the lanes would have had to be so much more shallow because in a long lane, Fiora will chase down the gangplank and kill him more often than not. But the Poppy almost made it work. The teleport plays were definitely far more on point from Someday than, of course, Duke could ever hope to put together with the gangplank. Alistair's the final ban on blue. What is KT angling for, if not a first pick Alistair?
I think they want to first pick Kalista.
Certainly that possibility. Arrow is 3-0, 6 KDA on Kalista, so both players came in 3-0. Of course, Bang extends that to 4-0 with his win the previous game.
But Kalista, yeah, still undefeated in champions on that
12-0.
champion.
12-0. So
pretty good.
You're right. I think you've got the sneaking suspicion of the Kalista.
They're going to give it to him, too.
Fiora ban on red side. You might think, okay, but Fiora's traditionally been a red side pick for KT, but you could definitely see KT just drafting Fiora and saying, Duke, what you got to deal with this? You know, will you just go to your Tom Kench? And Tom Kench has actually been a pick that SKT struggled to win with, so you're on the ball. They want the first pick Kalista, and they get it. I
think Duke looked just fine on Gangplank. I guess it could be a top Lulu. Faker's Lulu is also very good.
Faker is a wondrous Lulu, and guess what has been another comp that has served SKT so well? Lulu Lucian. And
they could take both right here.
Lucian's a good matchup into the Kalista. They're not pressured to pick the Lucian. Of course, we will not see that from KT unless Someday's been watching a lot of EU LCS and wants to pull out the top lane Lucian.
True enough. I think taking the Thresh is smart here. I mean, you get the good support pick for Wolf and grabbing that Lulu, which is the flex pick, so not really giving a whole lot away.
Taking one of the strongest roaming supports as well. Alistair off the board, now Thresh there to relieve pressure from Bengi or make Fly's life hell in the mid lane, as we've seen from Mad Life many a time.
Yeah. Clearly a very different approach to this game from KT Rolster. Let's see what ends up being. I suppose the Braum pick is what a lot of people have been defaulting to.
Score really needs to get it going. Honestly, was pretty poor in the previous game. We're not going to level that completely at him, but just was largely ineffective on a champion that previously he had looked unkillable and just so strong on. Actually had no deaths in his first 2 games as Graves, and of course those were both victories, but last game a far cry from those.
Well, if you remember how SKTelecom played him to score as Graves, it was really smart. You know, they kept those 2 pink wards around the mid lane to keep Faker safe, and that let Bengi focus on not getting destroyed by score.
And even previous to then, the lane swap hiding the jungle matchup, ensuring there was never a chance for Graves to just slip over and kill Bengi in his jungle. And Gangplank's going to be taken on blue, heavily expected to be someday returning to that top lane Gangplank.
Well, it'd be cool to see a Jhin, but I don't think we will.
It's probably going to be Lucian or Tristana. Those are the 2 picks that make sense into Kalista and fit in the wheelhouse. Lucian, of course,
Lucian Elise,
heavily expected. Bang has been outstanding on Lucian. 4-2. Sorry, not 4-2. He's 2-1 this season, but a 17 KDA, even including a loss on Lucian.
Opting for the Elise over the Rek'Sai is Bengi. Looking for a little bit more pick potential, I suppose.
Well, you know why you picked the Elise, though? It's because you want to dive that Gangplank and kill him in lane. They're expecting a top lane Gangplank. Top lane Gangplank and set into any Elise top lane duo is going to be difficult times for Someday to navigate.
Yeah.
Could still be a mid lane Gangplank, but we haven't seen much mid lane Gangplank this season, and again, seems to be more a Someday champion.
SKT's got so much flexibility with their last pick, too.
Well, they've got a top or mid laner. All they've guaranteed is AD carry, jungle, and support, so waiting to see what they draft in the last round. Risky to pick up the Lulu. So the Lux, you're definitely heavily expecting a mid lane Lulu if you do pick up that Lux. We've seen the threatening of the Azir a lot this season, but we haven't actually seen the pick locked in.
I think it'd be pretty surprising to see Azir. Ari would be interesting.
Well, it's a blind pick.
Yeah.
They don't know what to expect. Probably, you know, if you have to give a slight advantage, you're expecting the Lulu mid.
I think Lux is good.
Well, that's what they're betting on. They're betting on Lulu mid with this Lux pick. And what is Faker going to lock in, theoretically?
Go for Zed.
Zed would be not bad, though. Honestly, Zed is very strong in a split push against Gangplank.
Yep.
Double 80 carries to take out. Of course, Zed can be played around. He can be ganked, but Faker Zed would be something else.
It's Faker. I really want to see Zed here, actually.
You're really hyping me up now, because it does make a lot of sense into the comp they're facing.
It does. Yeah, I was thinking that when they were hovering over the Lux. I'm like, if they go with Lux, they could actually... SKT could actually run Zed into this. Oh, the Quinn would be interesting, too.
Still not clear where that Quinn is going. Quinn would be a strong laning matchup into Gangplank, especially early.
I like the top Quinn, actually.
It could be a mid-Quinn. Faker's played it this season as well.
He has, but doesn't it make a little bit more sense in top lane?
I think it does. I think you need to match wave clear to some degree against this Lux. If you just go for a Quinn who has decent wave clear but kind of has to get in auto attack range, auto attack down, those melee minions especially can get away from you. So heavily expecting this to be top lane Quinn.
Yep. Well, the fact that they swapped it over to Bengi for the swap up to top. They've got until 20 seconds to change it, but yeah, I think this win's going top.
And this is Quinn on a good team, which means it's going to be all about the split push. It's going to be all about SKT focusing on picks, and this is going to be trying to destroy Someday before he's a factor. Quinn at least can really punish Gangplank if he tries to farm under turrets. So Someday's going to have to be on his toes, and you'd have to think Score is going to have to be parked in his corner if this Gangplank's going to make it through the laning phase.
Yeah.
Big job for KT, get that lane swap, because if not, I worry for this someday in the laning phase.
It's such an emotionally crushing game for KT as well, to lose game one like they did, to come so close, still not be able to pull it off, despite the little opportunities that SKTelecom gave them here and there. So you got to wonder about KT's mental state going into this one. Hopefully they can hold it together.
Got that steadying influence in Hachani, a veteran on the lineup.
And he hasn't been checking bushes with his face that much this season, so good for him.
This is what it's all about, though. A big match feel here for the last match of the week. Could be our last game, but who's to say?
Yeah, well, I hope we get 3 games. We'll see. KT can certainly pull it off. Let's see if they can tie things up here in game 2. Time to get in the game.
Mother Nature, everybody wants to lose.
Faker's been having a lot of trouble with his jacket. Keeps needing to adjust it. Needs to fit a little bit better. So, KT Rolster versus SKTelecom, game number 2. SKTelecom in the lead by 1 game, a close game, and we could still see this go to the full 3 games. Wouldn't be surprised at all. Faker on that Lulu.
One of the greatest rivalries in the history of League of Legends.
History of esports, man.
History of esports, for sure. On display once again. Ooh, little harass advantage for Fly. Did hit his first E in this laning phase. It's going to be a lot of wave clear in mid. Lux definitely does have the slight disadvantage in the early levels, but then of course has such an immense range that this is a much less punishing mid lane matchup than we expected. And it's SKT looking to Duke to justify that last pick on the red side, rather than Faker, who's usually the beneficiary of the counter pick.
Yeah. Well, it looked to me like SKTelecom's draft was really clever. They really gave themselves a lot of options, a lot of ways to deal with what KT was picking in, and KT in the end had to kind of like shrug and say, well, I guess we're going to play Lux.
Well, let's talk about the lanes on paper. Quinn definitely has a field day with Gangplank, range versus melee, and just the fact that she's always been a bully of those melee champions. I really do like Elise into Graves. I feel like Elise is all in before Graves gets a more Malmortius or something later. Means that she really can be aggressive around the Graves. Lulu has the advantage in wave clear early, and Lucian's a lane counter to Kalista, so all across the map, SKT's usually the one picking themselves into a hole, just picking their lanes blindly and dealing with the consequences. This time, they have the favorable laning matchups, so The only equalizer is the man we talked about in Game 1. It's Score on the Graves. Game 1 got away from him. We're looking for a big performance from the Graves to start snowballing some of these KT lanes, because if they go the way they do on paper, it's going to be tricky times for KT.
Yeah, no lane swap for either team. Gonna get standard lanes out of this, and doesn't seem like KT would really want that, would they?
No, it means that KT are going to have to deal with Gangplank likely getting dived, but let's recall Game 1. Graves was kind of forced into a jungle follow situation. We didn't get to see Score have his big early game pressure like he has had in previous games.
Wow, look at that.
That's the matchup.
Oh.
It's just painful, painful times for Someday.
Yeah.
Basically, they're saying Someday, don't die, and Score, justify this lack of lane swap with that extra pressure, with the fact that you're off the map for longer, and make the plays your team so desperately needs.
Yep.
Well, this is the dive that anyone could tell was coming.
Yeah, Someday already on the way out. He's going to drop that ward.
World's most obvious dive.
Yeah. He knows it's coming.
Bengi knows there's a ward there as well, even though he hasn't seen it with his sense. He knows that it's coming, and that's why he's calling up Score.
Yeah. There's a recall. Okay. Opting not to go through with it.
Again, that would have been a big shake of the head if somehow Someday was dived, when everything about jungle pathing, you don't need to be an expert pather like Bengi to know that's where you go at this time of the game. So they back away. Someday gets a bit more farm. And again, all eyes on Graves. What can he make happen? Because he's the only one that can dictate losing lanes for KT.
Yeah. SKTelecom did such a good job of handling Score's Graves last game.
With a lane swap, to be clear.
Yes.
The lane swap was the big factor. They have not got the lane swap here. They're going to just say, okay, we're going to get the favorable matchup in top. We're going to accept that. And we're just going to play smartly around the Graves. But it gives the freedom from Score to expect the unexpected.
Pretty much. Both junglers down on the bottom side now. There's a hook on to Arrow. A little bit of harassment coming in. Chani blocking some of that damage, but Arrow's going to have to use a biscuit probably. Yep, that's his last one. No biscuits for Bang either, I suppose.
Yep, nice trade. Going over to Lucian.
Oh, dueling in the mid lane. Fly's going to take that one early on. Yeah, Faker needs to be careful there.
Minions and Thunderlord proc, that was definitely too aggressive from Faker. You do have lane ascendancy as Lulu in the early levels, so you can see what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
One of those situations where you feel pressured to have that 10 CS advantage, that 15 CS advantage, and sometimes open yourself up to those unfavorable trades if you're the Lulu.
Pretty massive lead already for Duke up in this top lane, which is not something you really would be too surprised about. And here comes Score.
Well, this is what didn't happen in Game 1.
Yeah.
Score doing his best peanut impression and trying to contest Bengi at every objective.
Yep, not going to be able to do too much at the Raptors, though. Here comes Wolf. All right, gank time in mid lane.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, they know Score may be a little bit out of position. Denied.
So the lane swap was one reason you didn't see such roams. The other reason you see it this game is that SKT, they look over to that summoner spell choice from Fly, and it's not heal, it's not cleanse, it's teleport. So only the Flash as a defensive summoner means just that much more juicy of a mid lane gank target from an SKT perspective.
Right. Yeah, bottom lane pretty even between Bang and Wolf, and Arrow and Hachani over on the KT side.
Just excited to see later in the game SKT's creative pathing from multiple members to dive this Lux, because Lux very famously doesn't deal with gap closes very well. And when you've got Duke powering through with the ultimate, whether you've got Elise, Cocoon, and of course no cleanse on the side of Lux, or Wolf making their way, I expect to see multiple different people rotating through mid once this game opens up a little bit to try and keep Fly's Lux down. It's been one of his best champions this season.
Yeah, definitely. They're just pushing the lane now. Faker, though, not going to need to use his teleport to get back.
Nope.
Might lose a couple CS, though.
We are seeing the Frost Queen's claim from both mid laners. Identical buys down to the pink ward.
Yeah, pretty much.
I've seen some mid laners move over to other items on 6.2. Morella Nomicon did receive a buff, so it's more attractive an option, but Frost Queens makes so much sense on Lux, because the thing about Lux, and one of the reasons why she was never picked in the past, was if you miss one skill shot, you just lose so much of your damage up. It's all about layering your Q, E, and ultimate.
Yeah, you also lose the ability to live during a gank
That's
if you
fair.
miss that. So it's really about staying safe.
But then on the offensive side, you start off with a targeted slow from the Spooky Ghost, suddenly hitting
nice.
those other skill shots is much easier.
Uh-oh, Score coming in for lane gank. They see him now. They've got that ward down. Bengi close, but not close enough to help.
Score saw the ward down.
Yeah, he should be aware. Sees the debris.
Just trying to give a bit of lane pressure. That's why he's backing in Vision.
Yep. Someday actually not doing too bad, honestly, in this matchup. He's behind by a bit, but it could be worse.
A 20 CS disadvantage without dying is basically gold standard for Someday in the early levels.
Yeah, well, in this matchup for sure. Yeah, and Bengi really hasn't put that much pressure on the top lane, honestly.
He went for a level 3 gank, but it was predictable, well called by KT, and since then, yeah, just been farming mostly, Bengi. Culling's used, level 6 pinged, but it doesn't look like Arrow wants to go for an all-in.
Oh, here comes Bengi now, but they see him with the ward. Bengi knows about the ward, of course. Had that little Raptor bump. Oh, wow, GPL used. Wolf slowed down by the passive. Teleport coming in, though, for SKT. Canceled on both sides. Faker was going to come down. Fly was going to follow, but they decided to stay in lane.
Probably smart. With the exhaust coming down, there just wasn't the rend kill potential from Arrow. I like the engage just because we saw the culling be used. Bang had about 100 mana, maybe 80 mana left, so wasn't going to be doing too much in any sort of skirmish, but the result was just a trade of heals between the AD carries. Oh no, Wolf uses exhaust, so one summoner advantage for KT.
Yep. Oh, Duke. Still harassing Someday. Quite a bit.
This is
Where's Bengi when you need him?
well, this is also where you just back away, pop your ultimate, and zone Someday alone.
Yep.
SKT sending many, many members around the top side. They know that Someday's going to be backing. Doesn't quite have his teleport up, but probably will be up by the time the turret comes down. They want to dive Someday if he just teleports back to lanes. That's why it's smart if Score does come, hold the lane.
Yeah, good wards by KT, though, so there's really no way for SKT to come in without being seen. They've really done a good job. Whoa! I was going to say, I'm keeping Someday safe. Meanwhile, Wolf's not staying so safe. His first blood goes over to Hichani. Bengi on the run, too. I think that was just a really nice catch by Fly.
Yeah, that was just Wolf base checking a lot of damage. No other way to put it. We didn't see the build up. What really baited Wolf into that area, but punished extremely. First blood over to awkwardly Hichani, though. Not even an ignite tick, just time the damage. Unfortunately, I know you're all about the
He deserved it.
bloodthirsty support kills, but getting Fly rolling would be a little bit more preferable for KT.
Yep. Hey, let's face it. If it wouldn't have been for the Braum passive, they wouldn't have killed Wolf. So I think it all goes to Hichani in my mind.
Fair enough. I can't argue with you, Doa. You present a sound, reasoned argument.
Yep. It's all based in logic, of course. Blue buff over to Faker. Not a big emphasis on Dragon this game.
Faker's shocked first. That was the reason why he wasn't in position to give the wild growth over to Wolf. He already has the Frost Queen's claims. The gold generation timing is going to be that much earlier. Wolf, nice roaming.
Here we go. Fly flashes right away. Nice, easy summoner take by SKTelecom.
No cleanse, no heal, no margin for error, so have to flash early.
Yep, Bengi's zoning, and this may be a Dragon attempt by SKTelecom. There's a ward in the Dragon pit, so I don't know if you can go for it too safely. They're going to try it. Gonna have to pull it out.
Cannon Barrage is up from Someday.
Yep, Fly's got his ultimate too. This is a bit bold by SKTelecom. We'll see if they decide to go for it all the way. They will. Q on to Faker. And will the Dragon get stolen away? Oh man, this just feels so risky. Yeah, they're going to give it up. They're just going to give it over to KT, it looks like. Hichani coming in, scores right there. Box dropped by Wolf. GPL goes down. Bengi with the cocoon down onto Score. Hook onto Score, but no damage follow-up. Bang just wasn't there. Zoned out by Arrow.
Can't fight in the choke against those ults.
KT doesn't take the Dragon, though. Nice dodge by Bang. Has to burn his flash to dodge the ult from Arrow. Fate's Call used. Dragon, though, lives through the whole thing.
Just about, Doa, just about.
Yeah, Faker's going to get some good damage on mid lane turrets, so I think in the end this is going to work out a little bit better for SKT.
One of the small times you can bring up the fact that Frost Queen's claim passive does actually affect structures, so you push a little bit faster on a control mage or utility mage like Lulu.
True.
Extra 15 magic damage, I believe it is, on those autos. Gold's nice too.
Comes in handy.
But KT, the big thing they have, right, is they have the Cannon Barrage, they have the Lux, which is so strong in a narrow corridor, like when you're kiting back to your blue buff, so smart of SKT to back away. Tried to bite off more than they can chew, but no punishment either way.
Yeah, Duke harassing Someday quite a bit, but Duke, or Someday rather, still staying pretty close in CS overall.
I mean, it's got to 30. You know, it's starting to get to the point where it's a little bit out of order, but
could be worse.
the moment that Trinity Force and a BF sword comes in, you give Gangplank any time and minion waves explode for bonus damage, so...
Yeah, and bonus gold.
Not panic stations just yet.
Yep.
Getting a bit cute staying in lane, though. A score on his side of the map, but the turret dive potential, while not immense, is certainly there.
Yeah, Bengi's not there, though. That's been the issue the entire game.
You don't even need Bengi when there's no cannon barrage to respect, though. So.
That's true. That's a good point. Faker pulling a bit of a lead in the mid lane now.
Yep.
About 20 CS up, but Fly did get really chunked out in that fight. Had to back off, and Faker really took advantage of that.
With blue buff down, Fly will really struggle in this lane. The big thing for Lux is you still have 130 mana cost on your E at level 5. Yeah. You really need blue buff. Crosswind's Claim is not enough to be able to control waves, so wave control on a much more economical mana budget for Lulu, so...
Yeah, and if you don't have Flash, that Lux needs to be super careful.
Absolutely.
Bingy they're on, no. Rift Scuttler Bro blocks the Q. And there's the culling. Johnny blocking some of the damage there.
Johnny's
Taking
low.
a lot, though. Faker comes in. Does he get the Glitter Lance? No, not quite. There's the ult. Hachani lives, but this could be the Dragon opportunity that SKT is looking for.
Who would have died to the auto attack, but actually was a clutch shield from Lux, over the wall to keep him alive. So close, but as you mentioned, SKT finally get that objective. They've had the lane control in multiple lanes. They picked winning matchups in all 3 lanes. They should have had Dragon earlier. So KT, the one small win for them is that they delay the first Dragon take to 14 minutes.
Yeah, it looked a little bit shaky for Bengi right at the start of that, but Rift Scuttler came to the rescue just in time. Oh, meanwhile, Someday may need some rescuing too. Drops that GP ult, takes some damage. Duke with the kill anyway. You know, if you go far enough in lane against the Quinn at this point, this is just going to happen.
Yeah, we didn't see the genesis of that. Maybe Duke was just camping in a brush, faking a recall, but
could be.
Gets the kill he was fishing for the whole game. Another small advantage goes over to SKT. Remember, they're the ones that have the onus to take the early game with their winning lane matchups. And the Dragon, that's the start of it. The kill, that's the start of it. But it's not at 6 minutes, it's at 14 minutes. There's still something to work with KT.
It kind of blows my mind a little bit, though, when you think about how shaky SKTelecom looked in some of the earlier series in this season, and then you compare that to how they look today. Where was this SKTelecom against, like, Jin Air, you know?
On holiday.
I think they really were. I think that was it.
Well, look, they definitely took the Kesper Cup as a holiday.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think most of the teams from Champions took the Kesper Cup as a bit of a holiday.
I think all 3 teams from Worlds definitely took a holiday during the Kesper Cup.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's been surprising. Apart from, again, that very impressive win over CJ in Game 1, where we're like, okay, same old SKT, plug in Duke, it's all great. They've looked shaky, but with this starting lineup, again, 2 losses only on the season for Duke, Bengi, Faker, Bang, Wolf as this 5-man sideline that we know will be there come playoff time.
That's true.
Really starting to show that they've got plenty to work with on the Rift.
You know, if you keep in mind, too, again, I like to point back a lot to a year ago for Spring 2015, where SKTelecom had a lot of losses against teams you may not have expected them to go down to due to a lot of experimentation, a lot of roster tryouts, and it's not quite to that extent this season, but I feel like you do see a little bit of that here in 2016 as well.
Not enough for me to drop the Rocks Tigers as objectively the best team in the league.
Oh, yeah, I think Rocks Tigers are certainly better. SKTelecom played those first 2 games against Rocks Tigers seriously. They got beat straight up. I think Rocks Tigers are absolutely the best team in the league right now.
And even though that was a 1-on-1 game score with this lineup, it was definitely Rocks Tigers ahead for the majority of their loss and, of course, all of their victory.
Yeah. Run, Faker. There's a shield. Fly taking a bit of damage. Binding doesn't do the trick exactly.
When does Fly itemize into a QSS is kind of the intriguing thing for me. Needs one, but we'll find it hard to pick up, just given the need to be hitting those damage timings.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the pressure with this Lux, is that he needs to be able to put out a lot of damage on this team, it looks like, and that makes it hard to grab that defensive item.
I guess you could argue, has a Gangplank, has a Graves, so maybe...
Bengi just grabbed the blue buff.
Well,
oopsie.
mechanics on point, except in blue buff donation, apparently.
It's tough, man, you know, that blue buff. Tricky timing.
I mean, look at Faker's mana bar. It's actually a relevant problem. This is where KT need to just send multiple people mid.
They need to notice that. Whoa, meanwhile, Duke notices Someday looks vulnerable. There's the ult again. Duke able to just barely survive by dropping the ult, and I think we're going to see a dragon pretty soon for SKTelecom, and there's not going to be a gameplay.
If that was solo queue, Duke would have gotten the kill, but the big factor was in competitive play, he had no defensive wards.
Yeah.
So wasn't able to go for the dive. Didn't have flash either, so there was like a very small chance of dying, but just because of the lack of wards, had to play more defensively than he would have liked. It means that Someday lives, but Someday has so little presence in this top lane, as you'd expect in the Quinn Gangplank matchup.
That's right. Faker's had to play it a little bit more conservatively with his spell usage here because of not getting that blue buff. Here comes Duke to the mid lane, though. Pops at Yomu's, goes in onto Fly. Fly taking some pretty serious damage. There's the flash. So they get the flash out of Lux, too.
So much damage. Of course, the mini slow that comes through with the Volt E as well is enough to force Fly to use his flash. Suddenly now, Bengi revisits that lane with a turret dive, with the wild growth. Suddenly it's a kill.
Yep.
As the next gank's coming in.
Hachani dodges the hook, uses that Braum ultimate. Wolf trying to anticipate him continuing to back up. Here's the part of the game where Duke just starts to be everywhere.
And it's on KT to have the preemptive rotations because they don't have the movement speed to match SKT. They just need to be on the ball for getting to these lanes. And the winning lanes, they've done their job, they've won their lanes, and now they're trying to get the 3 out of turrets to really vindicate their pick ban.
Yeah, SKTelecom having to back off of this turret just a little bit. You know, and again, you look at score, he just has not been too effective on this Graves this game.
To be fair, no kill involvement for Elise either.
Yep, that's true. That is true, but you don't expect it so much from Bengi. You expect it from Score, and that's the big difference. That pressure that Score constantly puts on the lanes this season with the Kindred, with the Graves, just isn't there in this series.
And the standard lanes that KT wanted to avoid on paper largely were opted into to give Score a chance to impact the map, and he hasn't.
Right. Well, they might still get a turret here. In fact, it looks like they will.
They don't have aggressive vision, but just they have such a big stack, and they've rotated their mid laner to bot. They do pick up this outer turret, so matching the only other turret down, but of course Duke having free time in top. But good lane assignment, you'd have to say, having Someday finally find a lane where he has some semblance of breathing room against the Lulu.
Yep, it's KT's first turret of the game. Duke's gonna recall. After, how much damage did he get done? No damage to the tier 2 just yet. Considerably ahead in CS right now, as is Faker over Fly. And the Rift Herald decides it's over. Somebody tweeted at me that like the Rift Herald was the Herald because he heralds the coming of Baron. No, then he'd be called the Baron Herald. He's the Rift Herald. He's heralding the Rift, which is already here.
It's been here a while.
Doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Summoner's Rift
He's
has certainly been
heralding
here a while.
If he's heralding the Baron, he needs to be called the Baron Herald.
But with the removal of summoners, what are summoner spells?
I don't know. They're magic. It's all up to your imagination.
The infinite imagination granted to us by Riot Games.
That's right. Imagine harder. Well, the Dragon's up. SKTelecom going for it right now. KT Rolster around. They do have the GP ult. And how much are they going to try to contest this? It's only second Dragon. And, oh, the Dragon releashes. Hachani moving in with a shield. They're worried about that GP ultimate. KT takes it. SKTelecom looking for a bit of revenge. Culling used. Fly pulled in. There's a GP ult. Duke coming from the side. Onto Someday. Someday's going to fall fairly quickly. They get Lux already. Wow, KT on the run. Fate's call. Pulls in Hachani. Bang needs to be careful here. Duke coming to save him. SKT's got 2 kills. Yeah, there comes Duke again. Arrow flashes right away. Bengi and Wolf coming from the side. Cocoon on to Score as Callista falls. A double kill for Duke. And this is going to be an ace for SKTelecom. KT gets the Dragon, but SKT gets everything else.
I feel like a tennis announcer, Doa, but that's an unforced error there from KT. Why are they fighting for the second Dragon when they've got no items on their champions? They're just not in a position to fight. They're going for late game scaling, not 21-minute second Dragon fights. And the cost is multiple kills. Now it's going to be, at minimum, the outer turret in mid. Faker's going to, if he wants to, he still has some free time to hit on this inner turret as well. No, Lux is there to pick it up.
Yeah, Fly died kind of early in that fight, so he can come back and save the mid tier 2.
I mean, let's extend that. Okay, you might say, but Gangplank had his Trinity Force, you know, it's getting started. There was some of those building block items. The key factor is that SKT are super fast. We're talking about Duke, we're talking about Whimsy from Lulu.
Let's check out that fight again.
And this is the factor. Fly doesn't have flash. There's no way he can fight a crazy skirmish in the jungle like this. Dies instantly. There's nothing a Lux without cleanse, without heal, without flash can do. Lux needs to be at the back in the open, shielding her enemies and doing damage from 1,000 range. And then it was just a shooting gallery for everyone to just use their immense mobility to clean up kills.
Yeah, Someday's just not even part of this fight. Died so early. Nice hook into the cocoon on to score. SKT winning a team fight pretty handily. Perfect team fight there.
And Duke is massive. 60 CS up 4-0-0 on this top lane Quinn and vindicating the red side 5th pick.
Yep. Still just 1 kill on the side of KT Rolster.
And it's on Hachani.
Yes, it is.
This is where the demoralization may come to impact KT. It was a close game 1, but it was kind of SKT's game to lose. KT made a nice comeback with some picks, eventually lost. This time, they're pretty far behind.
It's fighting time again. Johnny pulled in with that Fate's Call. Here comes Duke from the side. Fly forced to use that flash immediately. GP ult comes down.
Analysts will always say, myself included, Quinn is not a team fighting champion. But what we're talking about is the late game team fighting phase. What we're talking about is when there's true tanks that can kind of disrupt her or they can instantly burst her down.
Yeah.
It's not really team fighting right now. One team has their items, the other team's still scaling. It's just skirmishes, and the pick power onto an immobile champion like Lux, the proof is in the pudding. Basically, it's been Duke that's really been harassing and haranguing Fly's day. And then we should include that it's an AD carry with Lulu, so the Lulu's still there to help her in team fight sense. Still not going to be ideal, still not at 5 items a team fight champion, but for now, dictating the game almost single-handedly is Duke.
I mean, the utility is still similar to what we see from Duke's Fiora, right, or anybody's Fiora. The ability to get in the back lines and just assassinate the carries really, really fast. And so even though the Fiora was banned out by SKT this game, Duke still finds a champion that can fill, arguably the same role.
It can't fill that role without the Lulu, though, because with the Lulu, you can just go in with the Harrier Assault, and then it's a wild growth, and you're still a wild growth bot. You're still getting that knock up in the back line. The difference here with Quinn is she doesn't have the sustain, right? She doesn't have the grand challenge to be able to sustain through fights. She doesn't itemize naturally into double lifesteal items. So realistically, you get in, initiate, and then vault or flash away, and then fight like an AD carrier. You're not a backliner, but you do have access to the backline.
Tell that to Duke.
Well, when you're this far ahead, you're pretty much whatever you want to be. Yeah. This is definitely the you can be whatever you want to be when you grow up, son. Duke time.
Duke decides he wants to just be someone that annihilates the other team, which is a pretty good idea if you're League Pro.
I like seeing performances like this from Duke, because it allows me to get closer and closer to using the always bet on Duke adage that I love.
I think it's always bet on SKT, man.
Well, if you've done that in the history of League of Legends and esports, you'd probably be a rich man.
Well, I haven't actually bet anything.
I like how you had to evacuate the moment
things.
I mentioned actual betting.
Yeah.
Touchy subject here.
I will always bet my pride on SKT, though.
Well,
2014 was rough, but everything else has been fine.
Small blip there.
Yeah. And even 2014 wasn't that bad. They still won the first season of Champions after Season 3 Worlds, so.
Just block out 8 months or so and you're fine.
Yeah, exactly. That's easy to do.
KT.
When you're a sports fan, selective memory is a wonderful thing.
I think it's a useful trait, actually. But KT is so far on the back foot. They don't have any pressure in any lane. Someday, sort of safe under his turret, and then again, sort of not safe. Anybody else rotates bot, someday will die.
Yeah, pretty much.
Fly has no flash again, so it's almost completely useless the moment anyone shows up in lane. KT picked themselves into this hole. KT also didn't lane swap, or didn't seem to make a concerted effort to try to lane swap. It is worth noting that...
It's hard to say. Maybe they thought SKT would think they'll lane swap, so they tried to call the lane swap, but then because they thought they'd call the lane swap, they didn't lane swap, but then that means nobody lane swapped. Simple.
Yes, I understand the logic of the outthinking the outthinkers outthinking, but still they could have recognized that they could have gone for a 5-man invade. They could have gone for strategies to guarantee a lane swap. Of course, they might get to lane late, but it's Quinn, right? Quinn you lane swap on. It's a fairly standard thing, especially a melee champion like Gangplank that's always going to struggle. Instead, they kind of said, okay, we'll take our beatings with this top lane matchup and we'll make it work in other areas. And all you can say is that they haven't.
Yep.
And now they
that's
have
going to be another dragon for SKT.
Yeah, they just have no control of the map whatsoever.
Unopposed.
Now, it's not a third dragon, so at least KT did steal that dragon, but remember the heavy price of the 4 kills in the team fight afterwards.
I think they would have been a little bit happier with having SKTelecom with 3 dragons now and KT maybe with another turret or 2 remaining.
Duke has so many items.
Yes, he does. He's nearly full build already, but you don't sell the Doran's Blade for wards. No, never. Who needs that pink ward, man?
Are you ready for someday to get Flame Horizon by Duke?
I don't know if I'm ever ready to see someday get Flame Horizon, man.
Well,
I still don't quite believe it.
Well, it's getting close.
Could happen. I'm trying to remember if I've ever seen someday down 100 CS on anybody.
I mean, maybe a couple of years ago.
Well, when he was a Renekton-only player, yeah, I suppose it probably happened, but not lately. Not at all in 2015.
I'd call him a Renekton bot, but of course that is a noted community member, Renekton bot.
There you go, yeah. Yeah, Someday's really come a long way, though. You know, no matter what happens to KT, Someday, what a great career for this guy, going from that Renekton-only player. Like, literally, this guy could only be good on Renekton to now just one of the best top laners in the world, hands down. And even though he's going to lose this one, it looks like, still a great player.
3,000 gold advantage for Duke.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty good.
You know you do a lot of AD as Quinn when you instant clear the whole minion wave with your RQ.
It's not bad.
Someday, just not much he can do, honestly. And KT, much the same story.
SKTelecom with more or less total control over the map right now.
Haven't broken the base, haven't taken Baron, so not an unassailable lead just yet, but pressure-wise, might as well be one.
Yeah, 6,000 gold isn't a giant gold lead. You know, when you get post 30 minutes, I suppose, but they seem intimidated, you know?
Lux can keep getting a blue buff like she's riding right now.
Here we go.
They can wave clear, but this is the problem. They're going to start Baron. Duke's already walking up. Their Gangplank will have to teleport. It's already at 6,000 health.
Yeah, a really sneaky Baron here. Actually, I don't think KT was expecting SKTelecom to go for it this quickly. They're going to get it. Lux tries to snipe it, but SKT gets a clean Baron.
There's no way to do anything.
Hi,
Duke's
Duke.
now on the back line.
Uh-oh. Duke's on to score here. A lot of damage.
Oh,
Duke, the one-man army. Bang, meanwhile, takes down Lux. Arrow very, very low. Can't participate too much. Bang with 2 kills already. GPL being a bit of a nuisance, but that is about it.
Slow on the blue trinkets, you have to say. Triple blue trinket, and the Baron was at 3,000 health before they even spotted it.
That's a good point. I mean, SKTelecom just straight up snuck it.
Well, when you have that much damage, that's easy to do. Goodbye, inhibitor.
Yeah, easy inhibitor. And SKTelecom can just pull back and play this one safe. Very methodical closeout so far from SKT.
You really see the potential of Quinn when you see the best teams play it. Trace made us a believer of his Ignite top lane Quinn. Smeb has it perma-banned against him, and now Duke shows you that when you have great team communication, when you move around the map and make assertive decisions, and then you just have the lane monster that is Quinn. You make KT rue the fact that they didn't really force through in lane swap. They kind of accepted their fate, and seems to have quite a harsh penalty.
I'd say so. Still no Flame Horizon yet for Duke over Someday.
Ah, yes. That's right up there with at least it's not a perfect game in terms of backhanded compliments.
Right. Well, I just don't want to see it. Oh, maybe we're going to see a little bit of a fight here. Johnny's soaking a lot of that damage. Culling pushes away some members of KT. There goes another turret.
Yep, some turrets going down. Duke in the top and also in the bot lane with the 4-man stack.
Yep. Oh, so close. TP coming down. Faker joins back in again as they push into this bottom lane.
Yep, they got the cannon minion. No way to clear that, of course. Fly struggle to do much damage to it.
Yep.
Magic damage wave clear. Not much of a match for these bound up minions.
Not a whole lot, no. Lux not quite as useful. That turret taking a lot of damage. It's going to go down. And SKTelecom, man, what a game 1 was a little bit shaky. And look at that! Bang, just lights up Fly. Goodbye. He's certainly Fly, because that was a bug zapper if I ever saw one. And SKT looks like they're ready to end it right here. They take out Kalista almost immediately. GPL goes down, but is there anything that KT can do Faker very low, but he lives! He lives! SKTelecom not losing anyone yet. Hachani, the last man standing, and that is going to be it. A 2-0 for SKTelecom, and what a way to finish it. GG.
SKTelecom just completely throw aside KT in game 2. The first game, there were their ups and downs. There was no Corky getting caught in the river this time. Faker and Co just completely DPS down. Faker back on the Lulu, one of his trademark champions. And
They
KT, wow.
They put the period on that sentence, and at the very end of that game, the final CS count between Duke and Someday was Duke 364, Someday 263. He was Flame Horizoned by 1 CS.
It's worth noting, you know, we always talk about the King of Spring, talking about Dade, of course.
Yeah.
Duke was the MVP of the regular season in Spring. He's had a slow time adjusting to his new role in SKTelecom and the expectations that bring. Suddenly unleashed on the map, and in both games, a true terror.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I was saying right before the final fight happened, right before the game just ended, was that SKTelecom looked, a little bit shaky early on or throughout game 1, but game 2 was super clean, really well played. Duke has to be proud. That was a great performance on Quinn.
Big wide smiles on Duke's probably going to be the solo MVP interview for him. Fly on your screen, one of the new additions. How many KT mid laners have struggled against the wrath of Faker? Fly actually struggled against Faker quite famously in 2014 on Jin Air. Moves teams, wait a year, same story. Not much to speak about for Fly or for KT Rolster.
Yeah, and what do we say coming into this? SKTelecom looked a little bit shaky, and they did. They lost to the Rocks Tigers. KT looking strong coming into this best of 3, but the fact is, when SKT wants to be the best team in the world, they will be the best team in the world. That's exactly what we saw tonight, and it ended up being the 2-0.
But aren't you excited that the Rocks Tigers loom to question them on that?
I still think, game 2 was probably one of the best we've seen all season from any team, but it does still seem that just the way the Rocks Tigers play makes them maybe just a tiny, tiny bit better than SKTelecom, but I can't wait for that second series they're going to play in round 2 of Champion Spring.
Maybe we'll even see 3 games of it, though.
Maybe. Duke with the MVP, of course. It doesn't get much more dominating than that Quinn game.
Quinn given a free lane against Gangplank.
That helps.
Didn't even get the gank off at level 3. That would have meant this would have happened earlier, but suddenly Duke, 2 MVPs today, jumps up to equal second with the Rocks Tigers duo. And this is Quinn versus Gangplank on full display.
Yep, this is what happens.
Picked up that first kill.
Oh,
and from then on, Someday, where's safe exactly? Because under the turret was only marginally safer than anywhere else on the map.
Have you heard about the bird?
Seems to be the word.
Bird. Bird is a word. And I'm not talking about Anivia. I'm talking about Quinn's bird. And look at this. Someday just not even a part of that fight. Yeah, he ulted, but that's about it. He got to auto Wolf twice. Okay. Good grab by Wolf, too. Keeping Gangplank pretty minimized. And then, yeah, yet more death and destruction at the hands of Duke.
This was where KT really overreached to pick up an answering dragon and then fell. Just look at it. It's disgusting at this point. But this is why you're a free farmed, multiple kill. Quinn, this is exactly what you should be doing.
Yep, pretty much. Double kill there for Bang, and then in the end, they were like, well, we got a kill. I guess it's time to end the game. And just look at the health totals on SKT. Talk about intricate team fighting. Faker, how did he live through that? One more auto would have done the trick. That was clean.
Insane, and
very
also
clean.
a salvo doa to all the other teams in the league. This basically says, as plainly as possible, SKT still here to play.
Yeah, that was some pretty beautiful stuff. And so, we are going to have our MVP interview with only Duke. It's just Duke. Game 1 MVP, questionable. I think Bengi should be up there too, but Game 2, that was definitely a well-deserved MVP.
No arguments from me, Doa. Masterful performance on Quinn. Another champion you have to think about banning.
That's right. Go ahead, George.
All right, Champions fans, George again. So today's match between KT versus SKT. SKT was able to beat KT 2-0, and today's only MVP is Duke. Round of applause for Duke. Congratulations. How do you feel? Thank you. I know it's the first, the carrier match, and I'm really happy that I won. I know SKT was used to just win KT always before, but how do you feel about that? I really didn't know, but I heard that SKT has always been the winner against KT, and I'm really happy to keep keep it that way. In the ban pick, when Gangplank was open, what was your feeling? How did you feel? When the opponent team doesn't take it, I thought I was gonna take it, so I just picked it. I know against Someday you had a solo kill, and did you feel like you were gonna destroy the opponent team? No, not really. I didn't feel like we were gonna, overpower against our opponent, but I felt like we were going to lead the game throughout. I guess you're very confident. Not really. I'm not really confident. I wasn't really confident, but I play pretty well, I guess. Did you expect a 2-0 win? After first set victory, I was very confident after that. On the first set, I know Faker also played very well on the first set with Corky, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people expected Faker to get the MVP. What did Faker say? He didn't say anything. I also thought Faker was going to get the MVP, so I just didn't expect I was going to get it. I guess second set, you play very well with the Quinn. Was that a strategy to pick Quinn and giving them Gangplank? Yes, I was very confident with playing Quinn. I heard you guys have been practicing very hard. Did you show it all? I have been practicing very hard even before I came to this team, but I know Rox is undefeated. So please say something. How are we gonna play the rest of the first round? I know we have 2 more games to go, and hopefully we'll win both of those games. All right, congratulations for SKT and Duke. Take it away, guys.
All right, thanks for the translating, George. And yeah, I can see why Duke was pretty confident about that Quinn going into Gangplank. Makes sense.
I mean, it was gifted to him on a silver platter, though. You
Really
don't
was.
need to be much of an analyst to know that Gangplank will struggle in that lane. KT didn't take the necessary precautions to try and stop it down, and Feast was what was achieved by the Quinn in top. But just coming back to this first series of the day, CJ enters.
Yeah, CJ over Africa Freaks. That was an interesting series.
I think CJ in the end were deserved winners.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
this was the game that everyone was ready for, the telecom wars.
Yeah,
And this is always a story, right? Is it really a war or is it just genocide? Because,
well, I mean, the more things change, the more they stay the same, right?
I mean, I was optimistic about KT Rolster in summer finals and looked silly. I was optimistic about KT Rolster as well.
Well, you and Monty can keep rooting for KT, man. I know who's actually going to win it. SKTelecom every single time. They're going to move up to 3rd place. KT dropping down to 2nd. No change between CJ and Africa.
And just 3rd because, of course, they lost to Jin Air, but
Right.
equal 2nd in terms of game score and in terms of their win-loss record.
That's right. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see where SKTelecom goes. They're continuing their march up through the rankings now. Next week, KT Rolster versus Jin Air. That's going to be an interesting one after today. And then Samsung taking on CJ. A lot of opportunities for both of those teams, really, trying to struggle to be a playoff team.
Yeah, we didn't see Samsung at all this week, of course.
Right.
In the short week, so
Yeah, only short week.
to see how the break has treated them. But then we're going to get some interesting ones, though, because SKTelecom against Longzhou Gaming. Longzhou, of course, still getting together. Will we see Fury make his debut in that game? And then EM
Maybe.
Fire against the Africa Freaks.
Yeah, EM Fire versus Africa Freaks. I mean, meh. It's two
That's
teams
fair.
kind of towards the bottom.
That's fair.
I'm a little bit more interested to see how EM Fire does. I want to watch the growth of that team. And then on Friday, KT Rolster versus CJ Entis. Jin Air Green Wings versus Rox Tigers. A chance for Jin Air to prove that they deserve to be up in that 2nd place spot. It's been going well so far, but they have had a pretty easy season up to this point.
And we finish off the week, SKTelecom against Africa, Spenu against Samsung. But
Yeah.
that Jin Air versus Rox Tigers game could be an interesting interesting one. It's the last test for the Rocks Tigers, honestly, to go in undefeated in the first half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think Rocks Tigers have a pretty good chance of taking that one, judging on how they've played, judging that the fact that they're the only team really to beat SK Telecom at SK Telecom's best, I think, right now. But SKT looked extra good today. Well, the music is going, so that means it's the end of another week of Champion Spring here in Seoul, South Korea, guys. Thanks for watching. Doa and Papa Smithy here for you. Monty will be back next week, don't worry. And so will all the great players, all the great games. Thanks so much for watching. We really appreciate it. Hope you had a good time. We'll see you next week. The Korean cast is still talking, so I'll keep talking a little bit longer. You never quite know when they're going to stop. There we go. See you.